Hey there, everybody. Sorry for the week's delay, but unfortunately, I was sick last week, and also I had a lot of work to do. But let's get right back into it with episode 3 of Discovering Breaking Bad. Hi there, everybody. I'm Papa Kenn, and welcome to a brand new episode of Discovering Breaking Bad. First off, I just want to apologize if my voice, again, sounds weird at any point. I'm getting over a sickness, so if I do cough, I'm going to try and edit it out, but, hopefully I won't sound too strange. At least I have actually gained my voice back since my previous video, which didn't sound too bad, but the next day I lost my voice. But anyway, that's besides the point. Getting into this episode. The previous episode was The Cat's in the Bag, and this episode is And the Bag's in the River. Now, I'm really going to sort of give my sort of synopsis on this episode overall at the end, but to start off with, I will say this. The pattern of the show being a bit slow, it continues. I will admit that. That doesn't mean it's a bad episode, but it is admittedly rather slow. But to start off with, let's talk about my favorite moments of this episode. And there were actually several. Most of which revolve around Walt. And the first of which, it's technically two moments or two scenes, but they revolve around the same thing. And it basically has to do with, at the beginning of the episode, when Walt is cleaning up the mess left at the end of the previous episode, he has, I assume it's a flashback to when he was talking to some mysterious woman. Her name is not revealed. I can only assume she's either an old colleague or maybe an old student or something. I don't know. But basically they are talking about what makes up the human body, the different elements that make up the human body, because I assume they're both chemists. And, I found it very ironic because all this is taking place while Walt is cleaning up a human body, or the melted remains of a human body. And then at the end of the episode, when he has like a momentary return flashback to that conversation, it's right after he has killed Krazy 8, or I'm going to refer to him as Domingo, since apparently that's his real name. Now, the second favorite episode, I'm sorry, my second favorite moment of this episode is actually, it's actually when Walt confronts Jesse, after he finds out that Jesse's told told Domingo and his cousin all about Walt and his family and his life, where he works, very understandably, very angry at Jesse. And just that whole confrontation, and it was really well done, but the thing that made it just a great, like my favorite moment, it's such a stupid thing, but when they have this little fight, it's so ridiculous. Like, Jesse is sitting on the toilet kicking his legs out, and Walt is kicking too, and it's such a strange thing to see, like two grown men having this what looks like a wussy fight. I guess that's the right way to put it, but this is very strange. Like, it's almost like a slap fight with feet. I don't know, it was just very strange, but just that whole segment emphasized by that particular moment, the little fight, was just, it was great, and I really enjoyed that. Now, my third favorite moment of this episode, it's actually the entire scene where Walt is bonding with Domingo. Walt is trying to find any good reason to let him go, because his conscience is getting the best of him, and it's just become too much for him to handle, or it's becoming too much for him to handle. But at the same time, Walt knows that there's a very good chance that if he lets him go, that this guy's going to kill him, or go after his family, or just anything he can do to destroy Walt's life. And I really liked that, and it was followed by I guess you would call it the inevitable betrayal. And I guess I include this in with that, but it's like it's the bonding and the betrayal. The moment when Walt discovers that part of the plate that had broken when he went down the stairs before was missing, and obviously Domingo had taken it, and it just really compounded upon all of that bonding that they had done, all that talking they had done, that really, I mean, up to that point had convinced Walt to not kill him, to let him go. And then just that betrayal and the realization of that was just, it was really, I mean, while I was watching, it was just this moment of, oh no, really? Because for a second there, I actually thought that maybe this Domingo character would become an ally, maybe, of Walt down the road, but, obviously that doesn't happen, which brings me to my next, I hesitate to call it my favorite moment, but I think it was probably the most powerful moment of this episode, and it's actually when Walt goes down after discovering that Domingo has taken the broken piece and kills him. That entire segment, and it's incredibly painful to watch. The people that did this, I don't know how they made it look so realistic, but basically, Walt chokes Domingo to death, and that entire scene is just like, you see the bar, against his neck, and just his eyes bulging out, and it actually still gives me chills to talk about that. But the scene itself is it's just very powerful, and although technically Walt had killed or thought he killed both Emilio and Domingo previously in the first episode, that was sort of a fight or flight reaction, whereas this was, taking matters literally into his own hands and killing a man. So while in the first episode, doing that was sort of it was technically a fall from grace for him, but I really think that this moment where he kills Domingo is the actual moment that really it marks his first step in what's apparently going to become an incredible downhill slope. I don't like even after he does it, like, he shows great remorse. So I don't think that he's on his path to becoming what I assume could possibly be a villain of sorts yet. But it is definitely like the first switch has been flipped. I do believe that this is the beginning of his downward spiral. Now, and that brings us to my final favorite moment of this, and it definitely, it isn't as powerful as the previous one I mentioned, but it's at the end of the episode where Hank and his partner, I can't remember his partner's name, but they find Domingo's car that he and Emilio had rode up in to the RV in the first episode, and they essentially reveal that I believe it was Domingo, because it was Domingo's car, but they say that someone croaked their snitch. So that was a very interesting moment that I didn't expect at all, and I'm interested to see where it goes, or like where the show goes with that. That connection. I mean, not only that, but them finding the gas mask that I thought, oh, okay, well, a little kid found it. It's gone forever. No, apparently the kid's still around, and now they know where that mask came from. Whether or not they can connect it to Walt somehow, I don't know. But that moment in particular, I am interested to see where they go with that in the upcoming episodes. And that actually brings us to my favorite quote of this episode. Now, unfortunately, I wouldn't say that this episode was very quote-worthy. There wasn't really anything that was said that really stuck out in my mind, except for one. And it's not a meaningful quote. It's not anything that's really deep at all. But it comes at the end of the confrontation between Walt and Jesse. And Jesse says, I did my job, and Walt tells him, well, you didn't do it right because you didn't follow my orders, and Jesse says, oh, well, Heil Hitler, bitch, and this when he says that, I can't help but crack up. It is just a hilarious moment, and again, really, just unfortunately, that's the only really quotable thing I could think of from this episode. There might be a few others, but again, none of them really come to mind. None of them really stick out in my mind for me. Now, to sort of sum up my opinion of this episode, as I said in the beginning, it's slow. And unfortunately, I feel like most of the slowness that I experience has to do with the other characters in the episode, the characters that aren't Walt and aren't Jesse, which Jesse is barely even in this episode, so I guess that doesn't completely count, but any of the scenes with Skylar, Walt Jr., Hank, all of them just felt boring. It's like, I assume that they have something to do with, the overall story that's going to be built up, but it just feels... It felt unnecessary. Like if the entire episode had focused around Walt and had stuck with Walt the entire time, it would have been an infinitely better episode in my opinion. But we had the cutaway to Marie when she calls Hank and tells him that Walt Jr. might be on pot. Well, I guess one surprising thing, she's apparently sort of a klepto, or I don't know if that's like her first time stealing. But given my opinion of her in the first episode, I don't know what to think of her still. Apparently there's more to her, but it's not very interesting at this point other than her just kind of being a bitch, really. That's probably the biggest thing I can get from her so far. She's possibly a klepto and kind of a bitch. And then the whole part where Hank takes Walt Jr. to the Crystal Palace or whatever it is, where he shows him all these druggies and everything, and Walt gives him, of course, the pot as a gateway drug speech, and again, that shows some bonding between those two characters, shows that Hank does care for Walt, but I don't know, in the end, again, it felt unnecessary, and it just... And I don't know if this is the opinion I'm supposed to get of Hank or not, but so far, he just seems like that, like I said in the first episode, just a stereotyped, tough guy, super cop, and I just don't care for him so far. I don't care for any of the other characters so far, except for, well, to a part, Walt Jr., just because I like him, Walt and Jesse. Other than that, just everyone in this episode just felt unnecessary and uninteresting overall. I hope that changes over time as the episodes hopefully speed up, but in the meantime, again, it's really slow, and if it wasn't for the parts with Walt, especially near the end where it just came to a climax in that episode, I liked it, but I didn't. I didn't like all the background stuff, but I really did like the story having to do with Walt. Now, I have no doubt that this show is very well written, especially given how long it goes on, for 5 seasons, I guess. But yeah, so far, I'm kind of struggling to keep on with it, but I'm keeping on because the story around Walt is interesting. The other characters, I'm getting sort of that similar vibe that I got with Doctor Who when I started with that. It's like, I really like the Doctor, but the other characters just leave me hanging. I don't really care for them. Or I didn't at first. But so I'm hoping I get the same thing with this show. Like eventually the other characters, they'll start to grow on me. And the show as a whole will be more interesting to me. And I guess that brings me to the next coming episode, which... I'm going to make an estimate here that the thing that Walt needs to talk to Skylar about is not the fact that he killed someone just now or that he cooked meth, but rather that he has cancer, because the episode is called Cancer Man. So I think it's probably the most obvious estimate I can make at this point, but never know. I could be wrong. Probably not, though, again, given the title. But anyway, thank you all very much for watching this. I hope you enjoyed my little rants about the episode here. If there's anything you think I missed, or you have any particular favorite moments, or a favorite quote from this episode that I missed, please let me know below. Contact me. Let me know what you think. Again, I welcome all the comments, and I'm very thankful for all the comments that people have been leaving for both the Discovering Breaking Bad and Discovering Doctor Who. Thank you to all of my viewers. Thank you everyone that just watches this. And I will see you all next time on Discovering Breaking Bad for Cancer Man.